gold, and I'm not just talking about my pee.
Oh
no! Oh
that
no! That is gonna make it into the. Oh
That's
no!
gonna make it in.
Oh,
That's gonna make it in.
Oh well.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's a shame for the listeners because we've been talking about piss for 10 minutes and they only got to hear the tail end.
And they missed me referencing a King's Quest 3 puzzle. It's not really a puzzle, is it?
It's a chore.
It's a chore, yeah, when you have to throw the chamber pot. I used to love doing that as a kid. I used to be like, ew, so
Did you
gross.
know? Okay, so you knew what a chamber pot was, because I didn't when I played it.
I had to ask.
Yeah.
I had to ask.
Yeah, that's a great question to ask, isn't it?
Yeah.
I
had a lot of questions about King's Quest 3. There's like a spell that has like a horny toad in it. And my little young self is like, what's a horny toad? And Grandpa's like, ah.
I have a question
for
you.
Word?
It's like your grandma.
I have a question.
Matt!
What? They made... If your grandparents weren't horny, you wouldn't be here.
Oh my God.
I have a question for you about King's Quest 3.
Okay.
Okay, so you know the kitchen background? You can Google it. Google King's Quest 3 kitchen.
Okay.
I'm looking at it right now. Okay.
I mean, it's embedded in my brain, but I will.
Okay.
I'm sure there's probably some like minute detail that we never noticed. Okay.
No, it's not a minute detail. It's what the hell is it? What the hell is that yellow bell-looking thing at the top there, hanging with like above the fireplace?
Right.
Is that like a mushroom?
It
is that like it is?
Oh, it's a mushroom in the foreground.
Oh, because I never knew, and that's been bothering me That's been bothering me for 40 years.
Like very first time Sierra decides to play with perspective and failed so spectacularly.
Yeah, I always thought it was like a I don't know, like a trumpet or something, an ear trumpet.
I thought my little pea brain thought it was a sombrero. Why?
Mananan just like decides he's like, Gwydion, I have to go to a Cinco de Mayo party now. I'll be back.
I'll be back in a couple days. Like what? Yeah, that is a mushroom. Thank you for asking. I don't remember. I don't remember how I figured it out. I don't remember how I recalled it. It might have been. I mean, I reviewed this game several years ago. I've streamed it. Somebody may have like been like light bulb moment. Like it's not a hat. That's a mushroom drying out. And I guess you can kind of determine that because there are like herbs drying out.
Yeah, but the mushroom is so much bigger than everything else. It's weird.
Yeah, this is my problem with it, is the herbs seem normal size while the mushroom seems huge, and so it feels like the mushroom is hanging really close to the camera, but it's clearly attached to the far side of the pillars. So that is a mushroom that is bigger than a man.
Yes. And honestly, I kind of thought that. I was like, maybe it's a huge mushroom, to be honest with you. Like because the foreshadowing's not working here.
It could be a big wizard ingredient mushroom thing. Like maybe it's a special mushroom that he only takes a little piece of. I don't know. I'm
like magic.
In the HED interactive remake, they cut the mushroom.
Oh,
I bet people were real pissed about it. It was like that's like the Han shot first.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
King's Quest 3.
King's Quest 3. Like, Mushroom Gate.
Mushroom Gate. Where's the giant mushroom? Sellouts.
The real question is, what is in those barrels? What is that yellow and blue stuff? When you look at it, when you type look barrel, it says, I'll never forget this. It's burned into my brain. It's filled with foodstuffs.
Oh.
One word. Foodstuffs.
Yeah.
This is my barrel of yellow. Every kitchen has to have a barrel of yellow and a barrel of blue.
I mean, based on what we were talking before, you wanted me to have a barrel of yellow in my basement.
That's true.
So, just saying.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Save Your Game, a podcast. My name is Matt Aucamp. With me is the superb, the enigmatic, the indecipherable. I guess there's mystery to you. It's Pushing Up Roses, my co-host.
I don't even know what to say to that. That was amazing. I'm such a mysterious being. Hey everyone, Pushing Up Roses here. Welcome back to Save Your Game. I do like, Matt, that you said Save Your Game, a podcast.
Oh shit, sorry.
That's okay. Oh well, okay.
That's my stop working alarm. I forgot.
Wait, you know what? Way to make an introduction. I'm impressed. Matt, why don't you tell everybody who we have with us today who needs to stop working immediately?
Well, I can't be on this podcast anymore. Sorry. Bye.
This absolute rebel who's working well after his alarm goes off. It is a game developer. He's often known as Grundislav Games. You probably know him from the internet. It's Francisco González. How are you doing, Francisco?
Hello. I'm all right. How are you? Both.
Oh, I'm doing well.
I forgot to get my drink, so now I'm parched.
Oh no!
But thank you for asking.
Well, get your drink then.
Sorry, that was hard news for a second. I'll get it during the break, you guys. It'll be
during the Swanky Maximino.
Yeah, during the Swanky Max. See,
that's right. I listen to this podcast.
Nice, I love that.
I'm excited to be here with Pushing Up Roses and the Special Boy.
Yeah,
thank you.
We almost sort of know what we're talking about when it comes to adventure games.
Listen, I hosted an adventure game podcast for 10 years, and it's not easy. Well, I say that, but we recorded like 120 episodes in those 10 years, so it wasn't that exciting. So I know what it's like. It's hard, especially when you have a co-host who doesn't listen to you and is... Oof. No, I'm kidding. I co-hosted with Ben Chandler. He was lovely.
Oh, Ben is great. What a talent.
Yeah. We had the Blue Cup Tools podcast way back when, and so it's nice to actually be on someone else's adventure podcast for a change. So thank you for having me. Yeah, I don't have to do any editing.
I actually love being on podcasts. The only reason I have this podcast is because Matt really wanted this podcast, and his excitement was, I don't know, I fell into it, man.
Well, that's great. You guys are doing a great job. I honestly, I don't want to sound like I'm like, blowing smoke up your asses or anything, but I genuinely was okay. No. I was genuinely excited to be on here, and I look forward every week to listening to the podcast while I work. So
that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's thank you guys. Yeah.
Well, we're really excited to have you on. I'm curious. So your stop working alarm just went off. How was your day of work? What did you work on today?
Well, I actually stopped working about 2 hours ago because I was a bad boy.
I was a bad boy.
I know. Okay, so I don't not to put the cart in front of the horse, but like you're gonna ask me what I've been playing, and the thing I've been playing has kind of been taking over my life, and so I stopped work. I was bad, and I stopped working today early so I could get a little time in before the podcast because I knew I wasn't gonna be able to play after work. So But to answer your initial question,
okay.
I worked on some animation today.
Nice.
Wait, for what?
For the game that I'm making.
What?
The adventure game that I'm making. That's right. I'm an adventure game developer.
I am clutching my pearls right now.
You have pearls? You wear pearls to record a podcast? Damn, I'm in my pajamas.
I'm poor. Can I please have some pearls?
So poor. And what is the name of this so-called alleged game that you're working on?
Why, it's called Pushing Up Rosewater. What? No, I'm kidding.
Gamergate!
No!
Yes! No.
I can't believe you let him have that. I can't believe that got in there.
I didn't think that was good. I didn't think to do that before. Anyway, no, it's actually called Rosewater. And it's a Wild West adventure set in an alternate 19th century.
Nice.
Yeah,
I've been been following your updates, and it looks lovely.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, it's set in the same world as my previous game, Lamplight City, which was a detective adventure in the same alternate steampunky 19th century. Nice. And so, yeah, I've been working on it for a really long time, and I'm hoping it'll be out later this year. And I don't want to talk about it anymore because it's the bane of my existence.
But you know what? It's going to feel so good when you have that finished product.
It is, but at the same time, I know you're an artist, Roses, so you probably have this same feeling, which is...
How did you know that?
Oh, because I listen to this podcast.
Do you think has she mentioned it?
Well, here's the thing. There's an old saying, which is, how can you tell who's a vegan, who works out, and who's an artist? The people who tell you. So yeah, you know. So that's how it goes. But anyway, so I'm sure you know the feeling of like you've been working on something for a really long time, and part of you is like, oh yeah, I'll be so happy to release it. But then at the same time, you're like, but when I release it, it'll be out there, and people will tell me what they think about it, and that will hurt me. So I can't release it ever. So you're torn between this desire to like get it out and this desire to like, well, if I never stop working on it, no one will ever tell me it's bad. So that's kind of where I am right now.
That is a little. I mean, I've heard that as a defense mechanism. What's really helped me is to give no fucks about anything. Okay. I literally put out my bad art to see if people like it.
Well, I mean, even as like, I know you're joking, but like that has to be the last step, right? Like, art will literally never be done if you don't stop giving a fuck at some point.
Yeah,
yeah, it's true.
I mean, art is suffer after all, right?
Art is suffer. Yeah, is art ever really finished, you guys?
No.
It's not.
Never.
I have to force myself to stop. And that goes for video work as well. I mean, you read the comments and everyone's like, you forgot this. And it's like, no, I did. I promise I didn't. I just can't put every single thing into a video. Otherwise, I'm going to have a 4-hour video like a la H-Bomber guy, which is not a slight, by the way. I love 4-hour videos.
We're coming for you, H-Bomber guy.
I love them when someone else does them. I don't love them when I do them.
We're going to piss in your dumbwaiter, H-Bomber guy. Sorry, that was a little callback for the...
That's a little call, remember, from before?
Yeah.
Before when we did that. Yeah, that was good.
But if I can just do one last bit of shameless self-promotion, please go on Steam and GOG and wishlist Rosewater and buy Lamplight City. Yes. Thanks.
Francisco promises it'll be out soon. He promises.
Yeah, that's right,
really
I will.
Promises.
I mean, I do, yes. I don't know anymore.
Well, Francisco, you've already teased it, so now I'm really curious. What have you been playing lately?
Oh my god. Okay, so I've gotten into this thing that has apparently been around for a while, but I've only just discovered it, and I'm having way too much fun, and I feel like such a dork. Do you guys know about Grand Theft Auto roleplay?
Roleplay? No. I know about GTA, but I don't know about this roleplay thing.
I'm sweating.
It's not a sex thing. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not a sex thing. Okay. So you know how when GTA 5 came out so many years ago, they put out GTA Online, and they've been like constantly updating it, like always, and they're always,
Yeah.
Right. So GTA Online is like, you go online, you do the races, they have like a little story, blah blah blah. You can talk to other people, whatever. Sure. Okay. Cool. Well, GTA Roleplay is.
Oh boy.
There's a whole bunch of servers for this, but I happen to have a friend of mine it's always the same story, right? A friend of mine is who got me into it. Okay. And so I joined a private invite only server where everyone there is like, it's not rando 12-year-olds running around shouting the N-word, which is good. Yeah. So it's basically GTA Online, except instead of doing the races and stuff, it's literally just a giant... I mean, it's the GTA 5 map. You create a character, and you're supposed to roleplay as that character. So imagine doing like an online LARP MMO where you're just improving as your character that you've created, and you're talking to people, and like it's deep. Like there's people who own restaurants who you can order food from because you have to keep your like hunger and thirst levels in check. So you have to eat and drink occasionally. So you have to like patronize the businesses. You can do crimes. You can like form gangs. Yeah. So I started off making a noir private detective named Marvin O'Leary, who like his shtick was that he's just really lazy. So instead of solving crimes, he just buys replacements for the things that people have lost. And, and I got
Marvin, no.
So I got bored of him, and then I decided I was going to add a little like flavor into the server because the server's based in the UK, so pretty much everybody is in Scotland or in like the UK, which is great because it means they're all in bed by like 8 p.m. my time, so I don't have an excuse to.
Is there voice chat?
Yes, that's the whole thing.
So that's also got to be a great
exclusively voice chat. Yeah,
it's gonna be a great Sonic experience. Just like a bunch, just so many Scottish accents yelling.
Yes, well, not always
American crime.
Not always. Some of them put on accents. There's a couple of people who are doing these amazingly good Valley Girl accents that I'm like, wow, that's really good. There's one guy who's Australian who plays the town preacher, and he gives him this horrible Southern accent that it's ridiculous, but I love it. He's one of my favorite characters.
Nothing is better than non-Americans doing American accents because they do.
They always go Southern.
They always go Southern or accent. Valley Girl. It's one or the other.
The other thing, there's a third thing, which is just to completely flatten your voice. You just kind of go like this. Hi, I'm from America.
America.
That's one of my favorite things. Okay.
Yeah. So I made a second character who I've been playing this week. But the other side of the coin, what I was saying about the time zone thing is it's great because they're all in bed by like 8 p.m. So I'm not up until like 3 o'clock in the morning playing. But they usually get on around like 2 p.m. my time. So I'm like, I need to stop working for the day and play. So that's what I was doing before the podcast. So, but yeah, I made
it seems that we need to get on this.
Oh my God, it's so much fun.
Is there any part of you, Francisco, that's like having trouble adjusting to being Francisco again? Like, is there any part of you that's
I've been talking?
Like...
Okay, so the second character that I made is named Eugenio Hernandez, but he goes by Yugi, and he's like a stereotypical Cuban papi from Vice City. And I've been talking like this for like the past week, so I can't get back into my normal voice. It's really hard. So yeah, it's been interesting.
Interesting is the word for it.
But it's basically like a giant adventure game because you're running around like doing stuff and so he got a job at the local bar, and apparently his boss is like a crime lord. So I'm trying to like, because you're supposed to stay in character, so you can't know any information that, like, if someone live streams and you watch them, you can't know about what happened. You have to like completely keep in character. So you have to like, there's a lot of like hinting and suggestions and like, I hear you might be and like into stuff. What are you talking about? Oh, I don't know, just what. So it's been a lot of fun. And of course, and like the thing that's cool about the fact that everybody on the server knows each other is that everyone's really into it in a good way. So like everyone's really supportive and welcoming and like encouraging other people to improv and have fun. So we get into some really ridiculous situations. And then sometimes there's like random fun bugs. Like today we were all hanging out in the bar and I was serving them, and all of a sudden a bus appeared on the dance floor and killed me. And the EMS had to come and rescue me.
Oh no.
Then you have to like role play a reason why that could have happened in a real world.
Yeah, so our excuse is that the bar's haunted. So I know. So my friend has a character who wants to start up a ghost investigation group called
Called what?
The Bureau of Occult Observation, or BOO.
And then, if you got randomly hit by a ghost bus, in your own bar,
I mean,
you would
to be
start
fair,
a paranormal investigations group.
To be fair, my character had been warned that there might be ghost cars, but I was like, oh man, I thought you just meant I would hear them. I didn't think I would get hit by one. So, yeah.
I mean, that's a good assumption to make. It's very rare.
So
unless it's a poltergeist.
Exactly.
It could be a poltergeist.
Yeah.
This could be the entire episode. I have
could be.
so many questions.
We
okay.
may need to revisit this.
Yeah.
We may need to revisit this.
Look it up. I just streamed it like 2 days ago. So if you go to my Twitch, the VOD should still be on there.
Nice.
Are there celebrities in this world? Are there people where it's like, oh, everybody knows?
Well, there's the mayor, who I have yet to meet in an official capacity. She was so actually they just held. This sounds so pathetic when I talk about it. They held a fundraiser for this one. Oh, that's the other thing. This server clearly has adventure game fans on it because the chief of police is Chuck LeChuck. And then there's and then the guy who one of the guys who works at the seafood restaurant is Captain Randall Threepwood, who is a pirate. And Randall Threepwood. And I hope I'm not doxing everybody on the server, by the way, by saying these names. But
when you say,
I'm sure you're fine.
Is a pirate, are there boats in Grand
Theft
Auto Online?
Yes, there are. So there are. So actually, they just held a fundraiser for him this past Sunday so he could buy a new boat. And he did. He had his boat today. Everybody was standing at the pier. Yeah, I know. It's nuts, but it's hilarious. So that's what I've been playing, and that's what I've been playing.
And apparently,
absolutely wild
is what Matt's going to be playing pretty soon, most likely.
I don't know. I do not know that I can give myself over. I have a friend who LARPs.
Yeah,
and he tells me about how it's actually a lot more fun than you'd think. It's actually it's pretty nerdy, but it's actually really cool. And it's I just don't know that is a line I can cross. I've crossed so many lines of nerddom.
Yeah.
And there's just some that I don't know. I don't know that I'll ever come back.
Yeah.
That's fair. There's only so many things we can do as nerds. There's only so many interests and hobbies we can pick up.
Yeah. And it's funny because I told... to bring Ben Chandler back into this, I was talking to him the other day and telling him about it, and he was like, you live in the theater city of the world. And I'm like, yes, but I could join an improv group, but that would mean standing on a stage and be like, oh no, this is happening. I can't physically run someone over and then be like, oh my God, and have to deal with the consequences in a theater group. I can do that in GTA RP, but
we can't drop a bus on people.
Exactly.
On the stage.
Exactly. So,
well, thank you for that. I'm going to take that as a recommendation.
Please.
To be honest with you,
I mean, if you want to join the server, let me know. I'll put in a word because it's application only. You have to fill out a questionnaire about proving that you read the rules and stuff. So
that was so much more than I was expecting. Roses, I'm almost afraid to ask. But what have you been playing?
Well, no, I have not been role playing. I guess I have in a sense because I've been playing the Thaumaturge, mostly for this episode. And I'm probably not going to have. I'm going to just preface this. I'm probably not going to have too much to say because I'm not enjoying it. Prior to that, now listen. Prior to that, I played Disco Elysium and was obsessed, just completely. So I don't know if coming off of Disco, if my standards were to an impossible level now, and so that's what I've been playing. I've been playing the Thaumaturge, but wasn't really a fan. Matt?
Okay. It's going to be hard to keep this short, but I'm going to try because I have been because I know this is going to be a long episode anyway. I've been playing Indika, and we talked about it on the show once before because we both played the demo. Or no, I just played the demo. You were too scared of it, right, Roses?
Yeah, because I looked at the screen caps and I'm like, no.
Yeah, so those screen caps are a lot scarier than the actual game. The actual game's not really a horror game. It's just weird. I've been playing this game. It is really wild. It is about you're a young nun who is not fitting in her convent. This is like some alternate, almost I think it's like a steampunk world, but really you're not in a very technologically full area of the world, and you play a young nun not really fitting into her convent. She thinks she has the devil in her head. The devil, this like demon, is constantly talking to her and mocking her faith, and she feels like she is a sinner. She meets an escaped soldier, or escaped a soldier who went to prison and escaped, and he believes that he is on a mission from God. So you got a guy with a god in his head and a woman with the devil in her head, and they are on a little adventure together.
Good Omens, the weird version.
Now I just, there's so much I could say about this, but it's a meditation about faith, so I'm just going to describe one of the beginning scenes and then we can move on. Okay. There's a scene early on where an elder nun asks you to go get water. So as Indika, you walk kind of very slowly up a snowy hill with a metal pail, and you go to the well and you put down your pail on the side of the well, and then you grab the bucket that's attached to the rope. You kind of spin the left joystick to lower the bucket until it gets water in it. Then you spin it the other way to raise it up. Then you pick up that full pail, you dump it into your empty pail, you slowly walk down that snowy hill, and you dump your pail of water into a giant barrel, and suddenly up comes this pop-up that says 1 out of 5.
What?
And it tells you once you fill up this bucket, you get 100 points. Now, the very first time you get a loading screen, the loading screen tells you, hey, don't worry about points, they're meaningless.
Like on Whose Line?
Like on Whose Line, the points are meaningless. Don't mean anything.
So I think it's a meditation on faith, right? Like you can either be chasing points and just have faith that the game at the end will reward you for them, or you can ignore the points like these loading screens are telling you and just sort of enjoy the game. But a lot of the game is like that. It's like very difficult to play and not very enjoyable. And I think it is incredible. I think like not to sound like a complete douchebag, but the ludological metaphors really hit. And
yeah, I mean, that sounds very interesting to me.
This game is, I found it incredible. I don't think it's not the most fun game in the world, but it's only about 5 hours long. Okay, I could go on about this for a while, so that's where I'm going to end it. Indika, it's really good.
Okay, I'm also going to take that as a recommendation, because now that you have assured me that it's not as scary as how I was perceiving the screenshots, I might look into it again. I am not a big fan. I'm sure everyone knows this by now. I'm not a big fan of. This is first person, right?
No, it is third person.
Not. Okay.
There is a first person segment, and at one point, and there's a reason you're in first person. Again, game's highly metaphorical.
Okay. I'm going to look into it anyway, because now I'm less afraid. So thank you for that. And on that note, I think we should put on our favorite game, Swanky Maximino, obviously.
Yay.
Take a little break, and we're going to talk about Disco Elysium and the Thaumaturge when we return. So hang tight.
Roll that stanky Baxterino.
Oh my God. everyone, we're back. Welcome back to Save Your Game. I am Pushing Up Roses. With me, Matt Aucamp, and our special guest, Francisco González, or Grundislav. You know what? I didn't ask. Francisco, how would you like to be addressed in this podcast?
You can call me Francisco.
Perfect. So
I'm sure you've talked about this 1,000 times, but what is the origin of Grundislav?
Well, if you go to my website, grundislav.games, and go to the About section, there's actually a frequently asked questions bit that I put there because I got tired of answering.
I'm good.
It's
I'm kidding. I'm going.
Okay. 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 Thanks. I think all you listeners should do the same.
Okay. So today we are going to be talking, actually inspired by Francisco. Matt will maybe elaborate on that. We're going to be talking about Disco Elysium and the Thaumaturge. I have played both for this podcast, and I am very, very excited to talk about Disco Elysium. You guys, I hadn't played it before. I don't actually know what happened, but I think it had something to do with, it got very popular very fast. What was that, 2019, I want to say?
Mm-hmm.
And so it got popular very fast. The fan base went a little off. Let's be honest. It happens. We've seen it before. We've seen it with Sonic. We're seeing it now. And I think I was put off a little bit.
The two most famous games of all time, Sonic the Hedgehog and Disco Elysium.
Disco Elysium, yeah. So I actually put it off. I didn't play it, even though, a lot of my adventure game peers really, really love that game. And I obviously trust their judgment. It was just not... I don't actually know what put me off of it. But then we spoke about it. Matt and I spoke about it a little bit. And I'm like, you know what? It's time. So I booted it up and didn't put it down for like a week straight. I fell in love with this game. You are playing a detective, but a very messed up detective. Like you enter the game on a severe hangover and you have amnesia. And so you're kind of dealing with your multiple subconsciouses trying to talk to you as you're trying to just go through life and get your shoe off a balcony and get your tie off of a fan. And the mechanic is very tabletop RPG. I want to make this clear that I do consider this a hybrid adventure game. I do. You are doing puzzles and fetch quests and dialogue trees that you would do. However, it does have a tabletop RPG mechanic. So when I went to get my tie off of the fan, I had to roll. A dice check. So the dice are digital, completely randomized. And I failed. I nearly had a heart attack and died. Mm-hmm. And you know what? That grabbed me. I'm like, oh, this game is going to be special.
It's something special, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it's one of the funniest games I've ever played. It has a detective element, so your primary goal in this game is solving a murder. However, there are so many side quests, and I did them all. I did every single task.
Wow!
And I loved it. I love the characters. It is a little dialogue heavy. I just want to put that out there. It may be the most dialogue heavy game I've played personally.
Yeah, it is very densely written. It is it's kind of like I often want to compare it to a novel, but it's almost like a series of novels all smashed into one game. Like if you were to extract this story out into prose and using all the dialogue and all the all the narration that's actually in the game, I think you'd end up with like 4 novels.
I would agree with that. It is kind of like reading. It is kind of like reading a book, honestly. Very narrative heavy, very driven. So did you guys play it with, I learned this later, I guess it was released without voice acting, and later on voice acting was added. So I played it as it currently is with the voice acting. Did you guys play it with the voices?
Well, it wasn't released without any voice acting. It was released with very limited voice acting. Like it was the kind of thing where like when you first started talking to a character, their first few lines were voiced and like some important lines were voiced, but it was. But yeah, that was the version I played.
Okay, cool.
When it first came out.
That is also the version that I played. This is my this most recent playthrough that I did was my first time playing with full voice acting. And I don't know, and Francisco, maybe you can correct me on this. Some of the characters I don't think were voiced at all, right? Some of these voices were entirely new. Is that true?
Yeah, that sounds right. I don't really know because I started a playthrough of the game when they added the voices and I didn't get very far.
Right.
I got distracted and I never went back to it, which is funny because it actually happened to me the first time I played it, but I'll talk about that later.
Interesting.
But yeah, I'm fairly certain that there were some characters that did not have voices at all in the original release. And I know that there were some characters who they changed voice actors for, like Kuno had a different voice in the original version.
That might be what I'm thinking of is that there are voices when I played this full on voice acting version, there are voices that I didn't recognize.
Right.
And I guess I assumed that maybe it's because they weren't voiced in the original, but you're right. Maybe they were voiced by different people.
Yeah, because I think it was one of those situations where they might have done like the old Sierra games and been like, "Hey, Mom, can you just read like 2 lines for me? Because this character needs a voice." And then they were like, "Oh shit, we need professional actors now." When they released the full voiced version,
yeah.
So they did some recasting where necessary.
So are you saying that there was possibly a different voice for Kuno?
No, I'm saying there definitely was a different voice for Kuno.
That blows my mind because Kuno is such a
very specific character. Yeah, can you imagine?
Yeah, Kuno was a lot more like I don't know what word I can use to describe what he was like in the original version. I'm sure there's a YouTube video comparing the two, but he was a lot more abrasive in the original version. If that's even possible.
How is that even possible?
Yeah, I don't know. It just was
amazing. But yeah, I am so here's how I was gonna play the game, right? I was gonna be like super laid back and be like, you know what? Whatever dice roll I get is what I get. No, that doesn't work. No, I definitely save scummed a few times to get past things. I think we all
the
do.
The best laid plans of mice and alcoholic detectives.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's interesting that this game almost encouraged you to take a loss, to take an L, because it's just so interesting of what happens. And taking an L doesn't necessarily mean you die. You can like have a heart attack if you do something that maybe if your health is low or your morale is low, you can, which is why there are save slots, which is lovely.
You love a save slot.
But if you do fail and you don't die, it's not like you've ruined the game. You can continue with the game. Maybe your pride is hurt a little bit. And then of course, you can save scum, which I did do a couple times.
I think it's worth mentioning you do have 2 kind of health meters. One is health, like physical health, and one is morale, and both can kill you if you embarrass yourself too much or you remember too many traumatic things. Your morale drops to 0 and you just give up being a cop, or sometimes I think you give up on life. Or you can get too injured, and in that case, when you lose from lack of health, do you just die? Yeah, you have a heart attack or something.
I believe you have a heart attack.
Let's give a quick overview of like the very basics of the plot.
Sure.
So you are kind of like Rosa said, you're a detective who is real fucked up.
He's real fucked up, you guys.
You wake up on a hotel room floor and you don't remember your name, you don't remember who you are, you don't remember why you're here, you don't remember where you are, you don't even remember you're a cop, and you're completely nude and you have to sort of
well, you're wearing your tidy whities. I mean.
So you have to.
There's some dignity left.
Yeah, we have some dignity here. Come on,
you have to fix all that. You don't even have a portrait in it's.
No, that's so good when you look in the mirror the first time. That's great.
You don't have a portrait. You're in the bottom left of the screen where your health is. Your portrait is just blurred out until you look in the mirror, and you can choose to not look in the mirror.
Wait, whoa. Can you go the entire game without having a portrait?
I don't know.
Huh.
I've
Time
never
for another playthrough.
I've never done it, but so throughout the game, almost everything you do, all of your inner workings, all of your mental processes are talking to you. So your electrochemistry will be talking to you, or your sense of drama will be talking to you, or your weird tie will be talking to you. You just have all these voices in your head that are pushing you in different directions. And a lot of times these things will warn you, like, do not do this. You cannot handle what's about to happen. And one of the first ones is, looking in the mirror. One of your senses tells you, you should not do this. This is not going to go well for you.
But I did it. That was one of the warnings that I did not heed, because I felt that somehow it was important to look in the mirror. But such an interesting contrast in an adventure game is when it tells you not to do something to try to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's interesting because I noticed that on the loading screen, one of the texts was like, don't be afraid to make the crazy decisions. Like, this is a fun game where you'll be rewarded. It doesn't say it in that many words, but it's basically saying, like, don't be afraid to choose like the batshit insane answers, because like it won't punish you for it, which is something that you really do have to like drive home in players, I think.
Right.
And like, I don't know. It's just, from a design perspective, it's really hard to make a game where failure is an option, because like Roses was saying, like, you think, oh yeah, I'm going to play this and let the consequences go over. But no, in the end, you want to win. So like, you want to avoid failing as much as possible, even if it's encouraging you to do so. So yeah, it's interesting. But I think Disco Elysium handles it well. Yeah, I mean, there's very few instances aside from like it's hilarious because it's like, there's very few instances where you can die, but one of them is literally like the first action you can do, which is taking the tie
grabbing
down.
Your tie.
Yeah. So it's not like it punishes you for, you've been playing for hours and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I didn't save and I died, and then I don't think you can do that anyway.
Right.
But yeah.
So I mean, and that's a very interesting thing about Disco Elysium is they're really encouraging you to live with your decisions. And if you fail, in most cases, something interesting rather than something damaging happens. There's a point very early on where you find out. So just to, again, an overview of the plot, you end up going downstairs in this hotel room, finding out that you're a cop, that you have a partner that's been assigned to you, and you are both there to investigate a murder. The murder ends up being very complicated, very tied into the politics and labor of the area and the political history of the area. The entire thing takes place in this fictional world that is sort of a conglomeration of post-Soviet Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
And maybe pre-revolution France? It's hard to tell.
Is it pre or is it post? Disco Elysium is a little bit, I will say this, and it could be a pro or a con, depending on how you like to digest games. But even though it's kind of loosely based on these real politics, a lot of it is fictionalized and kind of made up. And it can be a little overwhelming. And there were times when I legit felt stupid. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And I don't know. It's not accessible in that way, I guess, if that makes sense. Don't get me wrong. You can still play it and have a blast, but don't feel bad if you're not on top of every plot point that's being thrown at you, because it gets very complicated.
The politics of the world are really dense. And I find it really easy to place it in post-Soviet Eastern Europe, right?
Yeah.
But it's clearly also inspired by some point in history in France, but I had actually a really hard time placing where specifically. Yeah, but it's about what happens to a world after socialism, after communism has failed. And now there's a capitalistic, like a centralized government. And your revolution ended in slaughter. And how do you move forward from that politically? And how do people, like, how does that affect individual people? And yeah, you can kind of, the politics are really complicated in the game, but they also really affect the day-to-day lives of pretty much every character in this game.
Yeah.
It's funny because it's a game about a murder mystery where the murder mystery is like the least important or least interesting thing about it.
Right. I know. Like, right? Don't get me wrong. I was on top of it. I was Columboing that shit. I'm but
it's like,
out.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting, but it's like comparatively speaking, it's the least interesting thing about it.
Yeah,
and you legitimately cannot figure out, like, there's no way you would be able to guess what happened in that murder case until the very last scene where it's revealed to you. It's not like one.
It's almost like an afterthought, like compared to like the experiences you've had and all that stuff. It's like, oh yeah, I guess I solved the case. Okay, great.
Yeah. At the end of the game, because like I said, I did every task. I was like, look at my accomplishments. Yeah, I started a nightclub. I'm so cool.
Also, I sang karaoke.
Okay. Pin in that. I feel like we should probably, like, obviously we're gonna get into spoiler territory, right?
Yes, sure. Okay. Probably.
Okay. Well, I want to start by saying spoilers. So we were talking about how the dice rolls, and when you fail them, sometimes an interesting thing happens. I think probably my favorite dice roll thing is that karaoke performance. Nice. Did you get it? Did you guys like get it right or get it wrong?
I got mine right. I wore the most ridiculous clothes that gave me the right stats. I dedicated my song to my partner, Lieutenant Kim. And yeah, he sung his little heart out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never failed at the karaoke roll.
Oh my god. I think failing the karaoke is like the better choice of the two.
Really?
Because if you get it right, he sings the song either way. But if you get it right, he sings it in the I forget which thing, the reptilian brain. No, not the reptilian. One of the brains.
It's the reptilian brain.
Okay.
Voice, right?
Well, he sings it in.
Voice you hear in the
yeah. He sings it in like the very low, like Tom Waits, like. If you get it wrong, he sings it in the other one, the other voice. No. So he's like, I went down there. It's so bad, but it's so funny.
But the limbic system. The
limbic system sings the song. And it's horrible, and it's off key, and it's super high pitched, and it's like nails on a chalkboard. And at the end, like I think only Kim's like the only one who claps out of politeness, and it's like everyone else is dazed. And then you're like, and then you get the option to be like, "Thank you," or like, "Well, fuck you too." And like, it's great,
unbelievable.
Yes,
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was so desperate to do the karaoke that failing it didn't even cross my mind. You
got to go back. You got to go back and fail it.
I assumed you had to succeed it. There are some roles in the game that are pre-scripted. There are a few roles that you will always fail or you will always succeed, and usually it's to teach you something about the game.
Right.
One of my favorites is very early on in the game when you're talking to the manager of the hotel, and he tells you about the money that you owe, and you can choose an option to run away from him. And if you succeed, it's like a little bit anticlimactic. He just kind of runs away to the door and then stops, and then the guy's like very mature and shouts at him. But if you fail, he runs away, and then he leaps in the air, and he gives 2 middle fingers to the guy behind the counter. And then the screen freezes, and you are instantly aware that you are about to crash into a lady in a wheelchair.
Oh
no!
With both middle fingers in the air.
Oh god.
And all your dialogue options at that point are all internal, and it's things like one of them, my favorite one, is something to the effect of, why did I have to use both hands for this? It's one of the funniest moments of the entire game. And yeah, you do that. You crash into the cryptozoologist in the wheelchair who's only nice to you through the whole game, and you fall on the ground, and it's very embarrassing. And I think you lose a morale point.
I would hope so. Man, I would hope you lose
only
like
one.
5. Only one. That's pretty bad.
It is bad.
One of the things I love the most about this game, and I'm not gonna say I'm gonna avoid the final ending. I'm gonna avoid like kind of you could call it a twist, I guess. However, I will say I was so impressed by how things came around. That talking to people and doing these seemingly mundane tasks. It's funny, our partner, you have to kind of earn his trust. He's very straight-laced. Every time I took a task, he's like, this is pertain to the case, and I'm like, yes. Yes, finding this missing taco definitely pertain. I would always take every case.
Or just yelling about random stuff, like telling him that like you find a random dead guy and then you just declare there's a sequence killer.
Yeah.
like throughout the game you can either follow these weird tracks or yell random stuff at your partner.
And you don't you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think you have to take on every task or listen to every single dialogue tree. I did. No. And that gave me, my jaw was like agape at the ending. I couldn't believe they tied some of these things together that I was doing.
That's one of the most amazing things about the game is all of that. Everything you yell at your partner, every weird side quest you go on, every even like random thing that's brought up and you think it's just a silly joke generally gets tied into the main story of the game in ways that you don't expect.
That's what we call setups and payoffs. And it does do it very well. Yeah.
That's the payoff for me, at least.
Yeah.
I think I beat that game, and I texted Matt like 1,000,000 times, of how excited and impressed I was.
I'm gonna ask you guys a couple more questions because
Please.
I'm just being spoiler man now because I've only played the game once in like not even like 0.5% because like I said I never went back to it. I guess now I can say like I really liked the game, but I also kind of bounced off it the very first time I played because it was so overwhelming. There came a point, I think it was like day 3, maybe Wednesday or something like that, where I just had so many things to do and I didn't have a real clear picture of what to do that I put it down and I didn't come back to it for a few weeks. But then when I came back to it, I really got into it and I finished it. And I kind of hit that same stopping point the second time I started playing it. And I wonder if that's a me thing or if it's just, I don't know. But did like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Let me respond to that real quick because I had the same experience the first time I played it. It is it is so dense.
Yeah.
There's like, I don't mean to sound like a fucking caveman, but it's a lot of reading. It's a real lot of reading.
Yeah.
And I was really overwhelmed at first. Plus, it's getting used to this idea of not save scumming, not min-maxing. You're basically playing an RPG where it is, like we said, perfectly okay to fail was really hard to wrap my head around. So I kept trying to do everything perfectly and realizing that like there were checks that I succeeded on that I got perfectly and it still had a bad outcome because I probably just shouldn't have done that thing. And so finding the exact perfect path, I had to realize like not really possible.
Yeah. And one of the things too, I think that kind of, I don't want to say it soured me, but it definitely kind of made me a little wary, was the fact that it puts that pressure on you right away to be like, well, you got to pay the guy that money or else you have no place to sleep. So it's like you spend the first day wandering around and you're like, well, I got to solve the murder mystery, but at the same time, I have to get money to sleep someplace. And then it's finally you find the lady on the boat and you're like, oh, thank God she gave me money. You just ask her, you're like, can I have some money? And she gives you money.
Oh,
and it's like, oh, that's funny.
not how mine went. That is
interesting.
Not how, yeah, that's not how mine went.
That's how mine went the first time I played, but yeah.
No, okay. I was like, I don't care about this money. Like I went into this not giving two shits about paying him back. I'm like, whatever. I don't know what I'm doing. I just want to talk to these characters and like, you know, explore. And so by the end, I had like 13. What is
Real?
Thank you. I like 13 Real, and I was ready to like sleep on a bench or something. And then Lieutenant Kim is like, "Don't worry, I've got some stuff in the car that we can sell." And I'm like,
right, yeah.
And so he helped me pay for it. And then I realized like you could collect, and that was the most expensive night. Is just that first night,
right?
And then I collected like the bottles, and got money that way. So I was literally I was ready to not pay. I don't know what I was thinking.
Because I think you can sleep on a bench and you get like a Hobo Cop achievement or something like that.
I had the Hobo Cop thing.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know you could sleep on a bench. You can get Hobo Cop. All right, this is something we should talk about. First of all, I want to say that I do think the pressure is maybe one of the very few flaws of the game. The pressure to have money. I do think that puts you in a weird spot where the game clearly wants you to fail and clearly wants you to do just whatever you want to do, but it's also funneling you towards this one thing.
Right.
So I do think that is sort of antithetical to everything else that the game gives you.
Yeah.
But we should talk about this, the kappa types.
Oh, right. I didn't really pay too much attention to those.
I didn't either. I was going to say that I didn't really... I don't know. That was my first playthrough, and I really tried. It's like you guys said, it can be a little overwhelming with the amount of... mechanics, I guess, the amount of things you kind of need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, because then there's also the whole like mind cabinet things, and it's like, what is this?
I never really fully understood those, if I'm honest.
It's essentially just a way of like adding perks to your traits.
Right.
Because it'll give you like, +2 and but then you don't really know what it's going to give you until you fully develop the idea. So
I want to explain some of these things to the listener. First of all, to explain what Francisco is talking about. So you have attributes like in any RPG. Does anyone remember what they are? I think I have a screenshot somewhere. But you have 4 stats that determine, whatever your abilities. And then you get a bunch of skills that are all sort of derivatives of those stats. And then on top of that, the four attributes, I have them right here. Yeah, intellect, psyche, physique, and motorics.
Right.
And then you have, intellect has stuff like rhetoric, drama, visual calculus. Psyche has stuff like empathy, suggestion, authority. Physique has like endurance, pain threshold, and motorics has like eye-hand coordination and perception, right?
So it's basically intelligence, charisma, strength, and agility.
Yeah,
for lack of
perfect,
less pretentious sounding versions of those.
Right, yeah.
Or more pretentious versions.
And then there's versions of those. Extra thing that happens is when you encounter certain things in conversations or in the world, you will get like notifications around your character to work on certain like thought processes. And at any given point, you can occupy like this your subconscious with developing a thought. And those thoughts will give you weird bonuses, or they will give you specific options that come up in dialogue or throughout the world, right? Like if you have shivers, for example, suddenly as you're walking around the world, as things happen, you get like glimpses that come to you on the wind of things happening in other areas. If you have if you have what's another one? What's another
perception?
Thought? Well, that's one of the skills.
I'm trying
what's
to remember.
Another like thought. Inland Empire, was that a thought?
That's a skill.
That's a skill.
That's still a skill.
It was something about like oh god, it was like getting your shit together or something like that. And like you think about getting your shit together, and then when you do, I forget what the bonus is.
So getting your shit together, I think, is one.
That's like the very first one, I think.
And the shivers thing, I think I have wrong too. Like, there's just so many, and they're hard to remember. Shivers is a stat. You're right.
Yeah,
I think it's the precarious world is the one where but there's things like your own date of birth you can think about, or this celebrity you happen to know about, or whether you have an actual art degree is one of them. And when you have these things, they open little bits of the world that you wouldn't have otherwise.
I mean, isn't one of them like, it's gonna sound terrible, but one of those thoughts is like thinking about like the fascist regime, right?
There's a couple. Yeah. There's one you can become, and that's what I was going to talk about the kappa types. So you can become a fascist in this game. You can also become a racist.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Put a pin in that. I have rough.
So there's a cop. So the kappa types, right, are some of these combinations of these thoughts and the consequences of your actions. If you say too many fascist things, then your character thinks he's a fascist cop. Or if you say a bunch of communist things, he thinks he's a communist cop. If you don't have the money to pay for room, you can become a hobo cop. If you keep referring to yourself as a superstar, you become the superstar cop. If you keep being wishy-washy, you become
you're like the
regular cop.
You're the sorry cop. No, you're the sorry cop if you're wishy-washy.
If you're
right,
so you become the sorry cop if you keep apologizing for weird shit you did.
I got that one in my first playthrough. I was very apologetic.
I went the superstar route. I liked saying very strange things because my partner, Lieutenant Kim, I just liked hearing his response. He's just like, "Oh, just don't understand." It tickled me.
Okay, so can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
Because I found a wiki kind of explaining the thought cabinet process a little better.
I would love to.
To know. So these thoughts, you get them by performing certain actions in the game. Like that's how you unlock them. And so each of them has a specific time that it takes to research them. That's in-game time, and like the game time goes by performing actions. So like every time you click a dialogue option or you look at something, that advances the game time. Right. I don't think walking around does.
No, when you're walking around, time stands still. So you don't have to worry about that too much.
Right. So while you're having the thought, some of them present penalties, like it'll give you like a -1 to logic, for example.
Right. That's only while you're learning it.
Right. That's only while you're learning it, though. And then when you complete it, it grants you the bonus that thought gives you. So like as an example, Hobo Cop, you get from referring to him, or oops, I shouldn't say his name, from the main player referring to himself as a hobo cop. Like if you pick it in dialogue, like saying, "Yeah, I'm a hobo cop," then it unlocks the thought. So while you're researching the thought, which takes 4 hours and 20 minutes of in-game time, you have -1 composure. Right. But then when you finish it, it says it reveals extra tear bottles on the map, does not actually increase money from selling them, despite its description, and the learning cap for shivers, which is one of the skills, is raised to 6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they all have very specific things.
I did learn a couple. I did, because I almost went the route. There's this racist you need to get past. And there's two ways to go about that. You can either like kind of subscribe to their ideals. So I learned the thought process, or you could just punch him.
Right.
I opted to punch him.
It's very hard to punch him.
Yeah, he's also like huge.
He's huge, yeah. I did manage to do it. It did take a couple tries, only because I really didn't want to go down this racist route. This game is very good at like.
So this is another spoiler, and I learned about this secondhand, and I'm so glad that I didn't experience this because I love Kim Kitsuragi.
Oh yeah,
but apparently there's a way. There's a scene late in the game when you're in this like church that's been converted into a dance club,
right?
And apparently through your actions, there's a way to like nonchalantly, like say the most racist thing possible to Kim. At that time. Yeah, like I think it's when you're encouraging him to dance. In my playthrough, I got him to dance with me, and it was great. We had this bonding moment. Yeah, but there's apparently a way to like be like, "Get on the floor, you," and then he calls him like a horrible slur. Yeah, that was my reaction too. I was like, "No, why would you be able to do that?" Exactly.
Wow.
So, yeah. And leading into this, I'm assuming that both of you ended the game with Kim as your partner.
Yes, I did.
Tell me, you can lose Kim as your partner?
You can lose Kim as your partner because he either hates you so much that he leaves, or he gets shot during the showdown.
The standoff, yeah.
The standoff. And then get this, Kuno becomes your partner.
No!
Yes!
Wow.
I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day, and I was like, "Oh yeah, you finished Disco Elysium." He's like, "Yeah, it was weird. Like the ending was really strange." I was like, "Why?" He's like, "Yeah, Kuno was my part." I'm like, "What?"
Okay, so for the listener, if you haven't played the game, Kuno is an obnoxious little boy who you meet. He's throwing rocks at the corpse whose murder you're trying to solve, trying to hit it in the dick. And he sells drugs that he steals from his passed out dad. And he's trying to start a new city called Night City full of locusts.
Yeah.
And
for my final spoiler question, comparative gameplay here. Did either of you keep the horrendous tie?
I did. Yes, I did.
So in the standoff, did you do what the tie told you to do?
No, what does the tie tell you to do in the standoff?
The tie tells you to do stuff in the standoff?
So I had the tie, but I wasn't wearing it. But I wasn't
wearing it.
Speaking of setups and payoffs, there's apparently if you wear the tie throughout the whole game, the tie talks to you.
Yes.
And it's like, and the payoff of it is at the very end, like during the standoff, the tie tells you to use it to make a Molotov cocktail to throw at the people.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I did that. Yes, I did that first playthrough. You're right. Yeah. I did do that.
Is that a good payoff or a bad payoff?
I don't know because I didn't experience it. Tell us, Matt. Was it good?
There's a violent show-off at one point in the game where a lot of the political factions in the town, like the representatives of each of the political factions in the world, that all converge to kind of like create this mystery in a sense. As far as you know, there's another factor which you won't know until the very end. They have a basically showdown in the middle of the town, and based on your actions, a lot of characters can die.
Yeah.
So one of the factors is whether or not you have a weapon. Well, you can have a sword that won't do anything, but if you have whether or not you have
a pry bar, he's like, yeah, see my first playthrough. I am such a poop. I did not go find my weapon. I had a pry bar only, and I realized at that point, so that this game is very smart at, I guess, allowing you to save scum with little consequence or a lot of consequence. So if you decide to replay this showdown, let's say you mess up like me, you didn't have your gun, you had nothing else, everyone eats it because of your mistakes, and you weren't, you have to go. This is not a save scum situation. You do have to go back very far. I mean, not like egregiously so, but you do have to go back and you have to replay that whole scene, and you got to hope for better dice rolls, and which I did do.
That scene is long. That scene is long and unavoidable. You don't get to decide, you don't, unless you know it's coming, you don't get to decide when that scene happens.
And once you enter the scene, you can't go anywhere else. Yeah.
You can't save until the next day when you wake up after. So, okay. So if you have the least amount of people I think that can die in that showdown is 4. Because 4 of what are basically, it's hard to say who's a good guy and who's a bad guy. Sure. But as far as good guys and bad guys go, 4 of the good guys will always die. And then you can kill up to 3 of the quote unquote bad guys.
It's rough, man. It's rough. This game makes me feel things, you guys.
If you have the gun, the way to get the least amount of deaths is sort of before any of them can act, you shoot one of the mercenaries, the bad guys. Or if you have the Molotov cocktail, you can throw that at him. It's called a spirit bomb.
Okay.
So I think it does the exact same thing. So it doesn't change. It's the same as having the gun. It's just funny because it's your tie.
I gotta try. Man, this game, even though obviously it's set up to, you're never going to see everything in one playthrough. You're just not. It's impossible. So it's definitely set up for replayability, even though it's a long game to replay. But it really does make me think about my choices and the consequences and which things I want to redo. And I don't know. I want to bring this up too. I don't know if you guys felt this way, but this game did a really good job of planting the seed that our character is actually so insane that we might be the murderer. And it does it subtly. It plants it in your brain, and I'm like, where is this game going, really? Like, what? How insane are we?
Yeah.
Now, when you get to the end of the game, there are ways to discuss whether or not this madness that you are engaged in throughout the game is part of your plan, whether this is intentional or you're just crazy because I think you kind of discover this far before the beginning, so this is a spoiler, but it's not a spoiler for the end. Your breakup, you're heartbroken, and you're just kind of beaten down by the world. So depending on your dialogue at the end, I think there is a way. In every playthrough I've ever had, I'll say this. It has been the conclusion that this was all intentional. This was the best way in an insane world for any sane man in an insane world to try and solve an insane crime. Was to go insane themselves. But I believe through dialogue you cannot do that, and you can just make everyone mad at you and think that you're crazy and stumbled into a solution.
Yeah.
I will say that I also really enjoyed how they kind of subverted the trope with regards to the breakup, because like usually in these kinds of detective stories, there's always like the tragedy, like the fridging of the wife or the romantic partner or whatever. And they subverted that in a very amusing way, I thought.
Meaning, do we want to go into the spoiler of that?
I mean, we've spoiled everything else. Why not?
No, this is an in-depth discussion. The only thing I don't want to spoil is the very end, kind of the twist, as it were. Yeah. Anything else is on the table.
So your ex-girlfriend, who the entire game, because you don't have a memory, you think is your ex-wife. Her name is Dora.
Yeah.
You could just call her at one point.
Yeah. And it's just kind of like, it wasn't as involved a relationship as he seems to think it was. And it's kind of just like, well, okay, sure. So
it's very sad.
It is very sad.
I found these scenes very hard hitting, especially when you kind of look at this game. And I'm gonna be frank here. I didn't like the 3D elements of the game. I love the portraits because they look like oil paintings. They're incredible. I just love them so much. But I didn't even mind. I didn't even really mind like how my character looked, because these scenes are so just everything is so impactful. Everything is done with such intention. You know what I mean?
I agree. Do you guys have moments? Because I think we should start working towards wrapping this discussion up and moving on to our next game. But do you guys have moments that really, really stuck with you and like will stick with you forever?
I do, and it's really mundane, but it was one of those things where I was like, oh, this is really clever. So you have to walk around a lot. Like, it's a big map you can traverse. There's no fast travel. So I ran around a lot at the beginning. And during the day one debrief, Kim was like, you really like running around, don't you? And I was like, oh, that's awesome.
He does say that. That's right.
Yeah. And I assume that he only says that if you have been running constantly. But I just thought it was such a cool little thing that the game reacted to that
Francisco,
that just stuck with me.
Do you know?
Yes.
Do you know how that's a setup that gets paid off to the end? Do you?
No,
do you know
I don't think
there?
I do.
If you continue running for the entire game, at the which you probably will, because who wants to walk around an entire game slowly?
I think I stopped running because I didn't want to disappoint Kim.
So at the very end, if you've kept running, you ask, you meet some people from your past. You ask them who you are, and they tell you are a cop who used to be a gym teacher. And then everyone said, and then you and Kim both say, "Oh, that makes sense. You've been running everywhere."
Oh,
that's right.
They tell you that you used to be a gym teacher no matter what, but that you've been running But that you've been running everywhere. I didn't get that.
Yeah, but he's like, that explains. He also is like, that's why you're so juvenile, because you worked with someone.
Right.
I didn't. Wow, I don't think I got that line. I did get the line that's why you're obsessed with the boxer. Oh, what was his name? There's a boxer that you have the option to talk about a lot at certain points. Oh, Contact Mike.
Oh, okay.
If you talk about Contact Mike too much, they go, that makes so much sense that you're a gym teacher. You wouldn't stop talking about Contact Mike.
That's very funny. Right. That's very funny.
Okay, so if I can put on my game designer hat again,
please do.
Quick.
Please do.
I think this game, as we've proven through our discussion, this game is like a masterclass on reactivity in games.
Yes.
And like, it doesn't matter. Like there's certain scenes that play out no matter what, and they have slight variations on them, and ultimately it all leads to the same ending, really, kind of. There's not like wildly different endings, but the fact that it takes note of so many tiny details of what you did and tells you about them, and you're like, oh shit, I did do that. That is what makes the game so great. Like,
right.
And I think that in the bigger picture of just like, figuring out how to design games and how to make people feel like the game is, it's a classic trick to make the game feel like it's more involved than it might actually be.
Mm-hmm.
Like compare it to like, say, a Telltale game or something where you have all these choices and then they ultimately don't mean anything.
Right.
It's that reactivity that's important there. I'll get off my soapbox now.
I think what I want to ask you, Francisco, is do you think, because a lot of people regard this as an adventure game, it's a little bit hybrid.
Is.
Yeah. So do you think it was successful in that way? Is this a good way to kind of hybrid tabletop RPG and, kind of decision making and also adventure game?
I think so, because ultimately I think what people enjoy about adventure games is that exploration element and that feeling of interactivity and reactivity. Because Baldur's Gate 3 is not an adventure game. it's clearly an RPG, but like people really enjoy the dialogue with the companions and stuff, and the options and the choices and what have you. And I mean, before this, the closest comparison that I would make with Disco Elysium was like, it's like Planescape Torment, which is an RPG, but like you can totally play it as an adventure game, because you can, I think the only fight you have to participate in is like the mid boss fight. And because you can talk your way out of the very final battle with the final boss in Planescape. And it's the same thing. It's like, you're a character who has amnesia. You're trying to figure out who you were. You were a bad person, maybe. So
I didn't realize it was that similar.
It's incredibly similar. Like the only difference is that in Planescape Torment you can die, and when you die you just wake up again. So there's actually some mechanics where you have to die in order to proceed, which is great. But like it's the same thing. It's just, it's essentially a game where you're exploring, you're talking to characters, you're not necessarily solving inventory puzzles.
Right.
But you're proceeding by making choices, and the game is acknowledging those choices, which I think is fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
But I was going to say one more thing and I forgot what it was. But so go on. If it comes back to me, I'll chime in.
Was it about Kuno?
It was not about Kuno, no.
Okay.
Did you shoot Kuno, by the way?
You can shoot Kuno?
You can shoot Kuno.
Yeah,
he dares you to shoot. He dares you to shoot him, and if you're good enough, you kill him, and then the game ends because you murdered a kid.
Because you murdered a kid, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I feel like
I hit him. I hit him, and then he respected me from there on out.
Okay.
Wow, wonderful.
Well, there you go. Violence against children is the answer. Thanks, Disco Elysium.
All right, Matt.
Wait, yes. Wait, did you hit Kuno first of all?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
I tried to and failed. Listen, I went with one of the 3, classes that, like a lot of RPGs will give you. Quest for Glory does this too. You can like pick a class that has stats in it already: fighter, magician, and thief, or stealthy, rogue, whatever. I picked the sensitive type. So my physicality was not on par, okay?
Right. So the first time I played this game, I allowed myself to like fail and succeed as best as I could. I ended up save scumming whenever like people died or I felt really bad about an outcome.
Yeah.
This playthrough, I hacked the game to make all my stats 20 so that I succeeded every dice roll. So just so I could see every bit of content.
But you literally hacked the game?
Well, you can open up your save file and you can you can change. It's actually really easy, but you can change all your stats to 20 so that you basically succeed every dice roll. And then you can see a bunch of content that you otherwise wouldn't. My next plan is to play the game with all ones, like all of my stats is 1, because you don't have to spend all of your stat points when you create your character. And that's the playthrough that I'm gonna be a fascist and a racist and just see
Lord.
and like maybe alienate Kim Kitsuragi and see what happens when you're just the worst.
I remember now what I was going to say, and it was actually a question for Roses, because you played the newer version, which in addition to adding voices apparently added some like new side quests that were political focused.
Okay.
And I didn't do any of those because I didn't play far enough on my second playthrough with the updated version to find them. Did you or did Matt, did you find any of those and do those?
I would need to know what they are, but I'm pretty sure I did. I took on everything that was offered. If you're saying it's something you have to find, I'm pretty sure I did.
I don't know, because all I know is that in the like patch updates, it was like, oh, we've added some new like specific political side quests. So I don't know if it's that you have to like declare your political ideology and then
You do. You have to declare your political ideology, and then it offers you what's called a vision quest, and you have to take it. I did not. I was a communist in this most recent playthrough, and whatever the moment where you declare, where like you can declare who you are and then take the quest was the only moment that I like backed off from it because I didn't realize, I think, what was happening in that moment, and I missed the quest. But yeah, there are these vision quests, and some people say that they're some of the best quests that are side quests in the game.
Oh, so did you get one then, Roses?
I believe I did. I think, but I'm not sure. My favorite side quest has nothing to do with politics at all.
Okay.
It's the nightclub. But it kind of does, right? Does the nightclub kind of have some?
Maybe
it does a little bit.
Did you guys find the guy inside the packing? Not the packing. The metal
container.
The man who
container?
is so rich that light bends around him.
Yes.
Yes, I found him.
Okay.
What a weirdo.
Wait, Roses. I didn't ask. You didn't answer. Was there a moment that really stuck with you? Is there a moment that you will remember like forever?
Honestly, besides the ending, otherwise that would be really, honest to God, will stick with me forever. I think the other thing, and it's just something that I think is so clever. It's more of a little mystery side quest thing, but there's kind of this meta moment where you go into this bookstore and apparently there's a curse in this bookstore. It's evil. Yes. There's someone lurking. I was scared. I'm like, oh, am I going to be scared? Is there a jump scare? There's not, guys. And what I found was like a group making an RPG game. Yes. And I just, what a weird way to flip it. I find this frankly frightening area, like back upstairs area of a bookstore. I'm thinking something's going to happen. And what do I find? RPG notes. I just thought it was fantastic.
There's a quote in this game that I think will stick with me for a long time, and I don't know. Maybe this is basic, and it just kind of hit me in a specific way. But when you're talking to, so in that failed commercial zone, there is one woman who was part of the RPG team, but now she's off on her own. She's just off on her own. No, not the programmer. She's not in the church later. The woman who's making dice.
Oh, yes. Yes.
She says, you're talking to her at some point, and she says, every time you cast a die, I'm reading now, so I don't have this sort of memory. Every time you cast a die, something disappears, some alternative ending or an entirely different world. And
that is a good quote.
That really stuck with me because first of all, that's how the game works.
Yeah.
And that's how life works. Every decision you make, you are closing off a world that you'll never be able to access again. It is completely disappeared into nothingness. And
that would make a great movie. You know, like maybe some lady's running down the stairs to the subway and the doors close, and then she doesn't know what's happening, and then she sees the alternate of her life. I'm talking about the Gwyneth Paltrow movie Sliding Doors, in case it wasn't obvious, which I've never seen, incidentally. But
there's also a point in the game where somebody says, and I don't remember, I wrote this down because I think it made me tear up.
Oh, no.
and I do not remember where it happened, but somebody says, producing something extraordinary is hard.
Aw, Matt.
And that's so simple, but like, of course, it's going to be hard. It's always hard to make something extraordinary.
I also think just in general, the aftermath of the showdown, where we're, presumably if you have Kim still, I just loved their interactions after that. After the showdown, it's very clear that they're on each other's side. Well, unless you made Kim hate you, which the game kind of, you don't want to do that. Trust me.
Or you got him killed in that moment. Like I am so curious about the anti-Kim.
Well, Matt, there is a dice roll right before that moment. Somebody is sneaking up behind Kim, and if you don't, I think it's a reaction.
You're
dice
right.
Roll?
I've never failed that dice roll, but
I've never failed that dice roll.
I feel like that's a dice roll that will only fail if you are at a certain point like of negativity with Kim, because otherwise
that makes sense.
Right. There's some dice rolls that aren't true dice rolls. There are some dice rolls in the game that are always destined to fail, always destined to succeed, or based on your choices earlier, and it doesn't tell you that. It pretends as if they are random, but they're not.
Those moments though with Kim where your character, it's just really nice to slowly see him become more lucid and like connected with reality. You're not gonna be connected with reality. You're kind of some of the traits of this character.
Crazy person.
But however, you have these moments of lucidity, especially with your partner, and there's just some very sweet moments there, and it makes you feel really good about yourself. Like I had gotten the achievement, Kim really trusts you. That's one of the achievements. Wow. And I'm like, I am so happy.
God, I thought it was time to wrap up, but I just want to talk about a couple Kim things.
My God,
because
Matt,
Kim
please.
Is such a Kim is such a good partner. So there is a moment where, like, early on in the game where Kim gives you a high five, and then you can succeed or fail at the high five, and then you can turn it into a low five right afterwards.
Oh, nice.
And you get a thoughts based on both of those, aces high and aces low. Did you guys get those?
No,
I didn't.
They feel really good. And then later, when you're talking to two, like gang members, and one is wearing a jacket that says "fuck the world," and the other one is wearing a jacket that says "piss" and then the F slur.
Oh, right, yeah.
And you can, if you succeed at enough checks, and I think there's like a few of them you have to succeed at to get this, you can get the jackets from the gang members, you can put on the "fuck the world" jacket, and you can get Kim to put on the "piss F slur" jacket.
Great.
And then you guys walk around as like two countercultural like shitheads.
Regular Beavis and Butthead.
It's just so good when you get Kim to play along with your bullshit.
I
had
really
a moment the very, very first time I played, and I don't know if I just misread what it said, or I don't know, but I feel like maybe it was because I had a certain stat. I don't know, but there's a moment where you first meet Kim, and there's the option to like ask your subconscious, who is this guy to me? Like, who is this man to me? And the response is, from my understanding, like very in earnest, it said, he's your half brother. And I was like, what? And that, like, it never came up again.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, is that like he feels like that's who he is because he's endeared to him from just meeting him? Or like, is he literally your half brother? Like, what? So I don't know.
One of your traits in that exact same moment will say, this man will do anything from you. This man would leap in front of a bullet for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just a flowery way of saying he's loyal.
Look, I have no idea.
Look, it would not shock me if that would be revealed to be true, basically.
Right.
Just based on the nature of this game.
Also, if you think about there's one thought called the homosexual underground. And
right. Yep.
Think about that thought. You get you can, and you have a good relationship with Kim. You can get him to open up about his sexuality to you.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I got to replay the damn thing. Another
gay.
30
there,
hours.
You don't have to replay.
So, we're going to talk about another game, and it's going to be a much shorter discussion than this.
Yeah, it sure is.
Because we're over again.
I have my book club meeting in 47 minutes or 57 minutes. So yeah, we have at least 56 minutes to talk about this.
Roses, why don't you throw on the music?
Okay.
And then we'll come back, and then I will explain why we're talking about this game, and we'll talk about this game, and I guarantee it's not going to spark as much discussion.
It will not. All right, here comes the swanky.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Save Your Game. I'm Matt Ockamp. This is Pushing Up Roses.
Hi.
And this is Francisco González.
Hello.
And I'm going to tell you why we're doing this double feature here. Me and Francisco were both on a live stream announcing various events for the Adventure Game Fanfare, which is an adventure game convention happening in Tacoma, Washington, July 26th through the 28th. You can check it out at adventuregamehotspot.com. During this live stream, Francisco mentioned a game that he was playing called the Thaumaturge. This game, it's an RPG game with a lot of adventure game elements, and Francisco described it as Disco Elysium, but instead of Kim Kitsuragi, you have a Rasputin. The historical figure Rasputin as your side
Grigory Rasputin.
And I was so intrigued. And I checked out the Thaumaturge and I played the intro to it. And there was, obviously it's different than Disco Elysium. It takes place in 1905 Russia. So a kind of a similar...
Poland, actually. It's in
Poland.
It's in Warsaw. But it's part of the Soviet Russian. Not Soviet, but
you start off in Russia and then you immediately go to.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, in the intro, you were not in Poland yet. I actually don't know exactly where you are in the intro. You might be in Georgia.
That sounds right. I just played it. I think Georgia is correct.
I think you're in Georgia, but so you're in pre-USSR. Russia, and right as things are starting to the USSR, like the Soviets are starting to kind of like incorporate all these different nations, right? And you play a detective who is kind of a little unhinged, a little insane, and a little depressed. And
this sounds really familiar. You're saying we're in a post-revolutionary world playing as a unhinged, insane, depressed detective who talks to people who aren't there.
Right. And it seems to be largely an RPG that isn't based around combat. It seems to be.
Well...
Seems to be that.
Right.
Seems very early on, it seems to be that. But, so... Okay, Francisco.
Yeah.
That's how you felt. I'm guessing you were about where I was.
I'm going to take full responsibility because when I was on this live stream, I think I had just played the prologue and had just gotten to Warsaw.
Right. That is when I decided, that's when I told Roses, hey, let's do a double feature episode of these two games. Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, to your guys' credit, though, if you buy this on Steam, which I did, it does make a note that they do kind of compare this to Disco Elysium. So it's, I feel that way by mechanic in the prologue only, and by kind of the nature of it. It's got some politic talk in the intro. I don't know how much further it goes from the prologue, because I had a very hard time enjoying the prologue.
So
in the show notes, we will put an image of the roller coaster of messages I sent to Matt when I was playing
oh my god
this game. Yeah.
I want to see those.
Oh, I will show it to you.
I really liked the prologue, and like you said, Roses, there was a lot of talk about the politics of the region. It made it seem as if that was going to be a big theme of the game.
Yeah.
You play a detective who is a thaumaturge. You are like psychically sensitive to the like psychic traces left on objects, and you can influence or read the emotions of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it seems really promising, and then intro creates a really a game, creates an image of a game that's going to be really, really cool. although there's a couple bits of combat in that intro that you're like, did these need to be here? These don't really feel like they're adding to the game.
I want to say they are turn-based. Because I think that's an important distinction.
So yeah, as a thaumaturge, you collect basically these spirits of what I guess are Eastern European mythology, maybe?
Yes, because I will confess to you, I'm slightly embarrassed to confess this, but my book club, which I am having a meeting with in 45 minutes, we are currently reading Twilight. Yeah, it's a long story as to why. We read classic literature. The idea is that we're supposed to read literature that passed us by, and we read a really heavy book, and we decided we wanted something light and fluffy, and none of us had read Twilight, so we decided, fuck it, let's read Twilight. And Twilight actually mentions that Upirs are Polish vampires, and Upir happens to be the name of your initial ghost demon thing, which the game calls a Salutor, which you go collecting like Pokemon.
Yes. And Roses said when I first brought this game up on the show, she said, "Oh, like Pokemon?" And I was like, "No, not like that. Pokemon." But let me revisit it and say it's kind of like Pokemon.
I was right about a thing. Woo-hoo!
It's card-based combat, and you collect demons. It's Pokemon. I think I've actually never played a Pokemon game in my life.
Pokemon games aren't card-based, but it feels very much like you are just throwing these demons at people and having them attack for you.
Right.
There's still, there's a lot of writing, and there's some really interesting ideas. I don't think the writing's bad, but the really interesting politics that are set up in the intro, unlike Disco Elysium, which really explores the politics and explains how politics is personal and how personal is politics, right? In the Thaumaturge, it's just like any everyday fantasy story where the politics basically boil down to the bad guy wants to make you illegal, and now you have to fight against the bad guy.
Right.
Which is just like the politics in Harry Potter or any other fantasy story, right?
I will say, to the game's credit, I do think that the setting is probably one of the most fascinating things about it. I have not played too much more of it. I want to say I'm probably about halfway through, because I've collected 4 out of the 8 Salutors where I left off. My partner who is currently playing it right now. As I mentioned, I saw the Steam achievement go up while we were recording we started recording, so I know she's playing it right now. She's further along, and I've caught glimpses here and there of where the story goes, and there's some weird stuff that comes up that I'm curious to see how but yeah, as far as the setting, it's interesting. I don't dislike the game. I'm willing to give it a chance, but I will say this. One of the things that is preventing me from enjoying it is the voice acting.
Same.
Right.
I'm on the same page.
It is all over the place. Yeah. Because it's I get what they're doing. They're trying to show that Warsaw in 1905 is a place where there's lots of different people from lots of different countries, and so they do the classic thing where some people are British, some people are American, some people actually sound like they're Polish. Yeah. But the voice acting is a very mixed bag. It ranges from passable to just cartoonish.
Yeah.
And the main character, I couldn't put my finger on what it was about the main character that I just couldn't get on board with. And then I realized he sounds like he's drunk. He sounds like he's drunk. He's always like, "Hello, my name is Victor Shulsky, and I'm here to talk to you about the thing." So then I was like, well, this puts an interesting spin on it. Because what if
going for laid back, but it's too laid back.
It's a little too laid back to where he sounds drunk. But now I'm playing the game thinking, well, what if all of this is in his head? Oh. And he's just an insane person going around going, "Blah!" because he's he's drunk, and he's just running around instigating fights with people, and the demons are all his personal demons, and he's just like, "Oh, my flaw is pride. Oh, I'm crazy." So this has made the game much more entertaining. However,
if you look at it from that perspective,
if you look at it, it's great. However, I will say, because the thought crossed my mind when I first started playing it, it's a game developed by a Polish team.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's really weird that the only voice acting is in English. But I did read that they are going to release an update with full Polish voice acting. So I'm waiting for that. So then I'll play the game in Polish with English subtitles, and maybe that'll make it better.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it's interesting because Disco Elysium is doing that same thing. They're having different you come across people and characters with different accents and different inflections, and but it works, I think. And I maybe the reason it works is because while I can see the comparisons like between mechanics and political things, the Thaumaturge doesn't have the edge that Disco Elysium has in terms of its writing.
Yeah.
You know, it's not only dark, but it's hilarious and writerly and poetic. And in that way, even when the voice acting is a little over the top, it makes sense because this game does have an unhinged quality to it.
Well, the Thaumaturge at the very beginning reminded me of Disco Elysium. The further I got into it, it started to remind me of like I don't know, Assassin's Creed or something, where you're just running around looking for who has check marks over their head, and their dialogue isn't that intriguing. Like they don't feel, you don't feel like you're talking to, most of the time there are some, but you don't feel like you're talking to characters so much as you're talking to quest givers. And there's almost no time where the game is enhanced by the combat. Early on also, I thought that the combat was going to be mostly optional. It felt in the demo very much like you could choose. You could talk your way through situations. You could fight your way through situations. Or like it felt like there was a bunch of different ways. But the further into the game I got, the more almost every situation requires 1 to 3 combats.
Which I don't think I'm really. Don't get me wrong. Some of my favorite JRPGs are exactly that. It's a lot of grind. It's a lot of turn-based combat. But for some reason, because it opened with more of that, like, check your perception, look around here, talk to this character, I don't think I was ready for just random combat. You know what I mean? I just wasn't. My brain wasn't computing this type of hybrid.
Also, the thing that irritates me gameplay wise is like there's the whole thing where it's like you're gathering clues, and then once you gather a certain number of clues, it's like draw a conclusion, and then the game just does it for you. Like I guess I'm spoiled by games like Sherlock Holmes Crimes and Punishments, or even like Obra Dinn, where you have to do all the deduction yourself. The game just does it for you. You press a button and it's like, okay, I found the hot spots by right clicking a whole bunch to see where the radar made me have to go, and that's it. Like the gameplay is a little lacking.
There's a lot of cool things like that radar sense kind of thing is as a Thaumaturge. If you right click or if you use a controller, you can press the shoulder buttons, and there's like I guess he taps on his grimoire, and this like red mist radiates from out from him, and little red sparkles gather around clues, and that's how you find clues in the world. And also it gives like this really satisfying little snapping sound that I really
do like that. I do, I found that satisfying too.
But Francisco, you're absolutely right. Then once you find the clues, you feel like you're becoming a detective, and then it just does it for you, and it just feels it starts to feel less like clue gathering and more like fetch, quest, hidden object.
Right.
Yeah, it essentially is a big hidden object game. Now you say that.
And it, I do think there's some interesting things going on in the narrative, even if the politics aren't really doing it for me, and most of the characters are pretty one-dimensional.
There's apparently also an obnoxious child character.
Yes,
who is voiced. Oh, I haven't met him yet in my Yeah, I haven't met him yet, but like he's clearly voiced by like a woman doing a high pitched
an adult
voice.
woman. Yeah,
an adult woman doing a high pitched voice.
It's
like
really
a Bart Simpson kind of.
Yeah.
Kinda. Only Bart Simpson, I think, is more neutral than just a shrill,
Yeah, that character's really bad. A lot of the characters' voices are really bad. You meet what I guess a guy with an American accent, and he's like the badass, crazy, chaotic crime friend.
And is this the guy from Albuquerque?
Is he from Albuquerque?
There's a guy from Albuquerque who has an American accent. I don't know if it's the same guy. That's another thing. I want to mention. There's like really weird, blatant pop culture references that come out of nowhere. Like there's a scene where you're going to a seance and they're like, "Oh, they're up in room 237." It's like, okay,
what?
That's the Shining. Great.
Yeah, Shining. I didn't. I don't like when that happens when it's too egregious like that.
Yeah, and then the guy that character from Albuquerque, his last name is Pinkman. I'm like, oh, okay, right. Is he selling blue crystal meth too? Like what?
There's a lot in this game. Like this game is just packed full of good ideas that are executed poorly.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things this game does successfully is, okay, if Disco Elysium is the subversion of a tabletop role-playing game, the Thaumaturge is a lot like what a tabletop role-playing game ends up being, where you have a friend who's your game master or dungeon master, and they have a really cool story that you guys are all enjoying, but most sessions they had a busy week, so they just throw you into a random combat. And that is what the Thaumaturge feels like. It's like,
okay, that's
you
fair.
come across something interesting and you're following an interesting lead, and then you just gotta fight the guys.
Also, I should mention that the combat music is the same every single time. So I've had that goddamn combat music stuck in my head for weeks now because I hear it.
That music is good at first.
Yeah.
You hear it 30 times in a row.
Times.
Yeah. Oh my god. That's everything in the game. Like the background music is the same everywhere you go, and it really, at the beginning you're like, this is really good music, and then after a while you're like, oh my god. Like this is really, and Francisco, like you're saying about the guy sounds drunk at the very beginning, he is going through some shit. So I was like, oh, this voice actor's really good, but then you get a couple hours in and you're like, oh man,
he's still on his bender.
Yeah. So
I will say there was one scene that actually I did feel like, oh wow, like it was tense. There's like a Russian roulette scene in a bar.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my god. It was also late at night, so I actually kind of was falling asleep through the scene. But when I was awake, I was like, oh shit, this is tense.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just because I'm old.
There's some good things about the Thaumaturge, and I understand.
I don't want to sound like it. Yeah. Now, I will also, full disclosure, I didn't pay for my copy of the game. It was actually very graciously sent to me by one of the PR people at 11-bit. So I don't know.
No!
I don't know if I would be so generous about my opinion of it had I paid full price for it, but your mileage may vary.
Yeah, I think your mileage may vary is definitely the thing. If you like turn-based combat, you're going to get a lot of it, and at least you'll get some cool story in a very cool setting along with it. But yeah, so that is the Thaumaturge. A little underwhelming. But
yeah,
some
like
really
I mentioned earlier
ideas.
too, especially coming off of Disco Elysium, where I felt so elated and like kind of accomplished. I think the Thaumaturge, what it lacks mainly, even more than like kind of some of this gameplay, is just personality. I would like to have it I would like to see it have more of a distinguished tone, a distinguished personality like Disco had. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, the main guy you play, Victor, is just angsty protagonist.
Yeah,
and that's it.
There's not much to him.
Mm-hmm. Well,
angsty protagonist with daddy issues. Don't forget that.
Yes, daddy issues. That's in place of a personality. All right. Yeah. Well, that's the Thaumaturge. Do you want to put on just like 5 seconds? Like, we should cleanse. You want to put on like 5 seconds of Swampy Jampatino, and then we'll come back and say goodbye.
Yeah, I can do that.
You should. I hope you're compiling a list of all of the variations of the name that Matt has called it.
If I'm not, someone else's. Trust me.
There should be a wiki. My favorite is Salmon Max and Reno.
Wait, did you say that?
Yeah.
You did? When did you say that?
I don't know. That was, I think, like my second one or whatever.
I missed it. Everyone, welcome back to Save Your Game. I am Pushing Up Roses. With me, as always, yeah, they're still here, Matt Aucamp.
I left.
Okay. I left.
Bye. I'm gone.
And Francisco González, hello.
I've always been here.
He's always been here. Matt left, I guess, but Francisco.
We forget to mention that Francisco's been on every episode. He's just really quiet.
I've just been quiet and hiding in the corner.
Every now and then, if you listen real closely, you can hear him
crying.
Say something.
That's accurate. Yeah, crying quietly in the corner. Yeah.
Francisco,
yes.
You have a game coming out this year. It's called Rosewater.
I do.
What do you want to tell the people about it before you skedaddle off into the sunset?
Sunset, yep.
Oh, how appropriate you say that, because that's what happens in Westerns. And yeah, as I mentioned, Rosewater is a point-and-click Western. It is not a comedy Western like you might think of most adventure games. It's more of an Indiana Jones sort of... I say it's like a road trip with your friends. There's companion characters. You're on a treasure hunt. It's real exciting. It's got a great voice cast. And it's coming hopefully later this year. Also, I should probably mention that if you enjoy games where failure is an option and you like detective stuff, I mentioned that the previous game I did that's set in the same world is Lamplight City, and that is a detective game where you can also screw things up. And you also play as a detective who has a substance abuse problem and hears voices. And it doesn't have any inventory, much like Disco Elysium, but you don't need an inventory for an adventure game. So you can check those games out. You can check out all my other games. I'm all over the place. Should I drop my socials?
Absolutely.
Is that what the kids say nowadays?
Yeah,
drop them socials.
Drop them socials.
This is what the kids say. Yeah,
the kids say
all the kids listening to this are like, "Wow, these guys are hip."
Oh yeah, all the kids listening to the Adventure Game podcast. Yeah, man, them hep cats. All right, so
my son won't even listen to this thing.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't either if my dad was doing an Adventure Game podcast. Probably.
Wait, if your dad was doing an Adventure Game podcast, you wouldn't listen?
Oh no.
So remember I said before about daddy issues? Yeah, let's not go there. Anyway, that's too much about me. Anyway,
if my dad started doing an Adventure Game podcast, I would just listen out of pure confusion.
Well,
what?
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
okay, all right.
I'm on Twitter. I'm Grundislav Games. That's GRUNDISLAV Games, all one word. And you can find me pretty much everywhere else as either Grundislav Games or Grundislav. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Mastodon. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitch as Grundislav. I do a weekly dev stream every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern called Wild West Wednesday, where I do a dev stream of Rosewater. I've also been streaming my GTA role playing, so if you're interested in that, you can check that out too.
Nice.
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel where I just put VODs of stuff. What else? I think that's about it. Oh yeah, I have my website, grundislav.games, and my games are all on Steam and GOG.com. And I think that's it.
Sweet.
Thank you.
That was a good wrap up. Honestly, I love it when people know how to plug themselves and
concisely plug.
Yeah,
good, because I don't. I always feel like I ramble.
I do. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Just Google it.
We will definitely mention when when Rosewater comes out.
Yeah.
Like this will be a topic of conversation. So
thank you.
You guys don't, listeners do not have to worry that you'll miss it. If you keep listening to this podcast, you will know when Rosewater is coming out.
For sure.
Yeah.
Rose, is anything going on with you that you want the people to come see?
Listen, I'm doing a video on Diagnosis Murder.
Ooh.
And yeah, I know. I'm so excited. All the 80-year-olds are gonna flock to my channel.
Maybe Dick Van Dyke himself will watch it.
That would be amazing. The GOAT. Real quick
so
story.
So crazy that guy's still alive.
Yeah, he.
You hush your mouth. If he dies tomorrow, I'm blaming you.
Yeah, I do too. Matt has jinxed it. So no,
he's never going to die.
I found an episode that I really wanted to do, and I watched it. It was streaming. Next day, the whole season I watched it from was taken down everywhere.
Wow.
So now I have a full DVD set of the second season of Diagnosis Murder. But that's what's going on with me. Keep an eye on the channel because that should be, I'm recording the VO after this podcast. So it'll be out soon.
Amazing.
Nice.
Well, everybody, make sure that you, give us, rate us on all the podcasting things.
My God.
We've got to tell them to, right? Like it's annoying, but you got to go do it. Look, all of us have to do things in our lives that we're not happy with. And what you guys have to go do is rate and review us on all the podcasting apps. And tell your friends and blah, blah, blah. And
do it for
come
me.
Back here.
Do it because I had to buy a whole season of Diagnosis Murder for one review.
We're part of the Adventure Game Hotspot Network. Go check them out. I plugged them earlier in the show, so I'm not going to do it again. Come back next Wednesday, and we'll talk about some more shit.
Good.
Who wants to? Francisco, you've listened.
Uh-huh.
Why don't you? Do you want to do the outro?
Can I?
Our goodbye? Yeah, please.
Oh wow. Oh man, this is a lot of pressure. Okay. Podcast is art. Art is suffer.
Yay!
Wow.